So Matthew Stafford is your comeback player of the year. He hasn't won it yet, but he is. There's not as much of a debate as everyone wants to say. Okay, anyway. Matthew Stafford should win the award, and I'm going to explain why. Before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. And just so you know, you can follow me on all social media at JKBogan. Let's dive in. You guys ever hear of a spinal cord contusion before Stafford got it? It's called an SCC, and it is very damning injury. It's concerning. It's a sometimes career-altering, career-ending, life-altering injury. Can lead to really bad things for the person that suffers it. The spinal cord contusion is an injury caused by the crushing of the cord with part of its tissue spared. Particularly the ventral nerve fibers connecting the spinal cord, rostral, and caudal to the injury remain physically intact. That was Beatty and Brensingham in 2000 over on Google. This was posted in 2014. But the point is, it's kind of a big deal. You know, we're talking about a serious injury. And if you're not an athlete, I mean, this thing can linger. An SCC takes 6 to 12 months to heal and can take years for others. Stafford suffered a spinal cord contusion last year in late November against the New Orleans Saints and came back, did not miss a game, did not really miss practice, did not miss training camp, was ready to go from the get-go, and he put together a really good season, man. So let's talk about it. First off, talking about the injury still, it's a potential career-threatening injury. Friend of the Believe in Rams podcast that you saw on this show, Dr. David Chow, a.k.a. Pro Football Doc, voiced his opinion and his concerns about Matthew Stafford last season when he suffered this injury. He said there were, a potential career-threatening issues here. And the reason being, he was concerned after it happened, the fact Stafford reportedly had numbness in both his legs, which is oftentimes a bad sign. Chow said surgery or potential retirement was in play for Matthew Stafford. And it's worth noting, the contusion last year, in my opinion, is probably the most serious injury because it's the spinal cord. Probably the most serious injury Stafford's ever had. Now, I don't know every single injury he's ever had, but what's been documented are 21 injuries over the course of his career. 21, causing him to miss at least a game. This, out of the 21, has to be the most dangerous. It has to be the most scary because this can lead to paralysis, okay? This is a serious thing. He suffered this last year, and he came back, and he played football for a living, continued to play football for a living in his 14th year or 15th year. And, now we're talking about a guy who didn't just go out there and have, a nice little participation trophy for it. No. He went out there and was a difference maker for this Los Angeles Rams team that needed him. So let's talk about it. This is why, by the way, Matthew Stafford is comeback player of the year. I am not going to sit here and discredit what Damar Hamlin did. Okay? I donated to his charity. I am a Damar Hamlin fan. I liked him before the draft at Pitt. I thought he was the best safety from Pitt. I kind of wanted the Rams to get him. I liked Damar Hamlin and was rooting for him when he got that opportunity because of his teammates going down with injury, Micah Hyde and, of course, Jordan Poyer. That's why he was playing. But when he suffered that injury and he overcame quite literally death on the field, that was something I don't think anybody expected. I don't think anybody expected that to happen, right? But when that happened against the Cincinnati Bengals on that day, we were all really concerned. You had people like Skip Bayless saying, oh, they need to figure out a way to play this game. This game still matters. And people like you and I, we didn't care. We didn't care about the game. All of a sudden, it was about Damar Hamlin. It was about being a human and having a soul and a heart to realize this man might not make it. Well, he did. And it's incredible. And I think he deserves his own award in his name, a scholarship fund. I mean, the NFL should have their own Courage Award. There's a Courage Award, I believe, given out to each team, each player on each team. So, like, a team decides who their Courage Award winner is. But I think he deserves to win the Courage Award this year. I think it should be a yearly thing. If it's not, I didn't see it anywhere. But here's why I'm saying this. Because I'm not one of those haters. I'm not saying Damar Hamlin had some sort of thing that led to this, okay? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. What I'm saying is that Damar Hamlin had a great comeback and deserves to be honored at NFL Honors. But it doesn't have to mean that he automatically wins Comeback Player of the Year. And perhaps, maybe, we shouldn't have given it to Alex Smith over Ben Roethlisberger, because based on the actual body of work, Roethlisberger outplayed him that year. However, Alex Smith played more than just 2 games and had 2 tackles, like Damar Hamlin does. My biggest thing here is I'm not trying to say that somebody who got hurt and came back this year to play at that high level, or anyone on this list, should be discredited. But in my opinion, when you weigh the level of importance on the field, when you weigh the level of value on the field, when you weigh the level of concern, Damar's concern is up here. Because he was ruled dead on the field. He was revived. So you can't take that away from him. Matthew Stafford is here around the same thing as Tua Tagovailoa. Tua almost retired because of concussions. Stafford suffered a concussion. Then, a few weeks later, ends up having his season ended, his career put in doubt because of a spinal cord contusion. That's what happened. They both came back. Tua had a great year, but I still think Stafford had a better year. Both are Pro Bowlers, if I'm not mistaken. But when you look at the way Stafford came back, Tua is playing on a team with Tyreek Hill. He's playing on a team with Jalen Waddle. He's playing on a team that everyone was saying going into this season when they got Jalen Ramsey was going to have a chance to win the Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford? Yes, this team won a Super Bowl 2 years ago. However, this is not the same team. Out went Jalen Ramsey, out went Bobby Wagner, out went Leonard Floyd, out went all those guys. They're all gone. It's really just Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald, Cooper Kupp, Ernest Jones. Not saying all those guys played on that roster. Obviously, I know Bobby Wagner didn't. The point I'm making here, folks, is that this team going into this year was thought of as a 3, 4, 5 win team. The over-under was 6.5, okay? People thought they were going to have fewer than 6 wins this season. People thought they were going to tank for Caleb. People thought, and I know because I went on multiple shows before the season, people kept asking me, is Stafford going to, play? So not only did Stafford play, not only did he come back, which is part of the Comeback of the Year award, Stafford came back from his 21st injury. That was probably the most brutal he's had. He came back, did not miss a day in practice or training camp, and did not miss a game until a later injury down the road in the season caused him to miss 1 game. And let's be honest here, if they didn't have the bye, he probably plays against the Packers. So let's talk about that. The year before, he played with no offensive line help. Everyone was hurt. His receiver got hurt. There were so many injuries on that Rams team. They went 3-6 in Stafford's 9 games they played before he suffered this injury. He had a 68% completion percentage, which is good, but it speaks volumes as to they were not throwing deep down the field. There was not a lot of time. This is a lot of dinking and dunking, short area, passing attack, so forth. 2,087 yards, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, an 87.4 passer rating, 15 big-time throws, and 12 turnover-worthy plays. Not a great year. And a lot of people started to question whether or not Stafford had hit a wall. I thought it was ridiculous because if you actually watch the film, I don't know who you put it back there. Lamar Jackson couldn't thrive behind the offensive line last year. Because you could say, oh, he'd run out of the pocket. Yeah, but they would know he was doing it every time. That was bad. That was not an ideal scenario for the Rams. Third and fourth string offensive lineman. Your left tackle at the end of the year is a guy who was on your practice squad in 2012. That's what they were dealing with. So, fast forward a year later. We're recording this right before the Rams play their Week 18 game. The Rams have already taken care of business. They're already in the playoffs. Big reason, Matthew Stafford went 9-6 this year. That means he did not get credit for the loss because he didn't start the game against the Packers. So 9-6, Matthew Stafford went a 62.6 completion percentage, which is 23rd in the league. Let me just explain why. Because the majority of the beginning of the season, it was a lot of long developing plays, even past the bye. Long developing plays, looking more intermediate to deep, right? Not really short. So the opposite of last year, because the offensive line was better. He had 3,965 yards, which is sixth in the league. He's so close to a 4,000-yard season, but he's sitting out for Week 18 with the Rams securing a playoff berth. He has 24 touchdowns on the season passing, which is tied for 10th in the league. He's tied for 9th in the league with 11 interceptions, and a 92.5 passer rating puts him at tied for 12th. Keep in mind, he missed a game, and after the bye, he had like 14 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. He was unbelievable after the bye. And if we were going to go after the bye, then you could be talking about him as the best quarterback in the National Football League over that time. He has 33 big-time throws on the season, which is tied for third most. And the people that he's, basically behind in turnover-worthy plays, by the way, which he has 12, which he had all of last year, by the way. So he had 12 in 15 games, and he had 12 in 9 games last year. And he's throwing deeper down the field. Explain that to me. The guys that are ahead of him, okay, the guy he's tied with is Zach Wilson, and the guys who are ahead of him are Joe Burrow and Kenny Pickett, who have not played 15 games. So in reality, Matthew Stafford threw the fewest turnover-worthy throws. He had the fewest turnover-worthy plays among everyone in the NFL at quarterback. And now you want to tell me that this guy is getting the cold shoulder in the MVP voting. He won't even get he won't get a vote. He didn't win Super Bowl MVP, so not really a shock. He's the only quarterback in NFL history to throw for 3 touchdowns in a Super Bowl, win said Super Bowl, and not win Super Bowl MVP. They were going to give it to anybody other than him. The fact of the matter is that the media does not want to admit that they were wrong about Matthew Stafford yet again. They were wrong about him in 2021. They applauded the fact they were right about him. Oh, they were right about him in 2022, despite the fact everything fell apart. And then they all started the whole, the Rams mortgaged their future for this guy and all these. And now all of a sudden, mum's the word. He's not getting the run for comeback player of the year, despite the fact he had a better year than Tua Tagovailoa. He's not getting the run for comeback player of the year over Joe Flacco, who, as great as he played down the stretch, Matthew Stafford beat him. Matthew Stafford had to come back from a spinal cord contusion and not just off his couch. Matthew Stafford played the whole year. Like, he only missed 1 game. Flacco played the last half of the season, maybe around 7 games we'll give him. And that's what we're looking at there, maybe even fewer than that. It's a great story. Flacco shouldn't be ahead of him. Tua shouldn't be ahead of him. Tua deserves votes. Flacco deserves votes. But the fact here is comeback player of the year should be a guy who didn't just come off his couch. I mean, you can give him credit, but it should be somebody who came back and faced adversity and had to really go through something and put together the best season among everyone else who came back from something. That should be it. And Matthew Stafford has the best resume. I see a lot of Baker Mayfield. Man, I love seeing Baker do what he did this year. I was a believer of him when the Rams got him. I loved picking him up, and he made the season fun last year. It was hard to cover this team at the end of last year, knowing that so many people were out on this team. It was over, draft, and I kept saying, just let's enjoy the rest of the season, right? And Baker made it fun. But Baker Mayfield did not come back from anything. Baker Mayfield finished the season as the Rams starter, went into free agency, got paid to be the starter for the Bucs because of what he was able to do with the Rams and his previous resume. And he played as well as Baker's played in his career. He didn't come back from a serious injury, and I'm a fan of his. So really, it's a nice story, and Flacco's a nice story, and Flacco could end up winning the Super Bowl with this defense and what he has around him, despite the fact that he lost all those guys. Nick Chubb is out and everything. But I still feel like it's between Stafford and Tua, and Stafford's a better quarterback than Tua. He's had a better year. So I would say Matthew Stafford is the comeback player of the year. I mean, if Damar Hamlin came out, and I'll say this, Damar Hamlin would have my vote if he started multiple games and had a game where he had like 10 tackles and had some interceptions. He hasn't played enough. Like, I'm just being honest. Doesn't mean we can't, give him, some honor. We can't honor him, because I'll tell you right now, I think, I just love that everyone came together for Damar Hamlin, and what he went through. It matters. But as far as the spirit of the rule of comeback player of the year, it should go to a guy who came off an injury and did what he did. Like next year, do you know who's available next year? Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow. Those are the type of guys comeback player of the year. If we're going to go down this hole, though, if we're going to say Joe Flacco's comeback player of the year because he got off his couch and played well the last 6 games of the year, if we're going to say Baker Mayfield's comeback player of the year because he had a better year than last year, even though he is a starting quarterback in the league, then how do you not include Kyren Williams, who quite literally was supposed to be the starting running back? People didn't know this, but Kyren Williams was supposed to at least have a really big run and a lot of burn as the number 1 running back or number 2 with the Rams last year. Well, Kyren Williams actually suffers an ankle sprain in the first game of the season on the opening kickoff, where one of his players rolls into the back of his leg after the whistle. Now, that happens. He only plays a few games. By the time he came back, which was the Saints game, ironically, I believe it was the Saints game, not Kyren Williams, Cam Akers was the starter. So he didn't even really get that much run towards the end of the year. To me, that's comeback player of the year. If you're gonna say that, Stafford has the adversity angle there. I mean, don't get me wrong, Hamlin has a lot too. I'm not trying to take anything away, but Stafford has the adversity production angle where he came back from the injury. He was the best player that came back from injury. Boom, there you go, comeback player of the year. But if we're gonna do the whole off the couch, if we're gonna do the whole, didn't have a great year last year, how about Kyren Williams in his rookie year? That was an absolute disaster. He barely got a chance to play. And then he comes out this year and he's the second best running back in football, and no one would even argue with that anymore. That's my issue. So you can't on one hand say it's not a quarterback, this is a quarterback award and this isn't and all that, and then have just only quarterbacks and not have Kyren Williams. So I don't know. I feel like, to me, I'd give it to Matthew Stafford. I just think people really take for granted what he went through. Spinal cord contusions are not easy to just recover from. Stafford did a lot of work in the offseason. He started to learn how to play tennis. He lost a lot of weight. He put himself back in really good shape, and he came back from this injury. And just like all the injuries he does. And besides the fact that he's the baddest man in the NFL, because he's essentially Mike Tyson. I mean, the dude is an absolute badass. He gets hurt all the time. Doesn't matter what it is. His freaking injury history is as long as the Declaration of Independence. And yet he still can't get credit for having this comeback type of year. It's just, you have Wink Martindale of the Giants saying before the game, he'd be, up there with Lamar Jackson for MVP. But he's not up there for comeback player of the year. I don't get it. A lot of people don't mention him. To me, he is the only option because of what he's done. And again, of the year, a player of the year award is the best player. Who is playing better than Matthew Stafford that went through the adversity he went through? That's my point. So I don't want to beat a dead horse. This will probably be the last time I talk about it. I've mentioned it on live streams, but I just wanted to put it out there. Matthew Stafford has been the best player that came back from an injury last season. And that is how it should be. It's how it should be. And I'd say with the Alex Smith point, because I know some people are going to be upset about that, because that man had a scary injury, very similar to Joe Theismann, and there's some crazy thing where it happened on like this. He was in attendance. It happened at the same time, same score and everything. I don't like to look at that. That stuff is creepy. But he played 6-7 games, so he played more than DeMar. And on top of that, he started in those games. Like, he actually played quarterback. DeMar's not starting. So, again, I think Roethlisberger was kind of screwed over in that sense. But this year, make it right. Give it to the best, the true comeback player of the year. Baker's not playing better than Stafford. Flacco's not playing better than Stafford. And neither is Tua. So you got to give it to Matthew Stafford here. And you gotta figure this thing out. Those are my thoughts. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Should Matthew Stafford win comeback player of the year? Would you still give it to DeMar Hamlin? Would you give it to Tua? Would you give it to Flacco? Would you give it to Kyron? I'm sure there are others that I'm not really thinking about right now, but I'm curious what you guys think in the comments. You can follow me at JK Bogan. I will see you guys later. Take care.
Start playing Pick'em or Weekly Fantasy for any sport today, Jake. Users will receive a 100% deposit match up to $100 if they use promo code OTE at sign up. Start playing Pick'em and Weekly Fantasy Football today with Underdog Fantasy.
Do you love talking about the Rams, the NFL, or just want to be a part of a community? Join my free Discord server today. We're over 800 members. We got 24/7 live chat, a level 3 boosted server, the ability to call into JE Live, playing online games with us on Kick streams, toggleable alerts for when I go live on YouTube or Kick so you don't miss a live stream, and exclusive giveaways. Click the link in the description, the comments section, or the link that comes up in the video to learn more and join today.